Welcome back. So this video is a continuation of the last video where we did a conceptual overview of this dog demo app, and we talked about the two GET request routes. So again, to reiterate, same expectations apply. You do not need to understand 99% of this code. If you can just treat things as conceptual blocks and you can understand that this code here is responsible for the dog's GET route, and it somehow sends you back a page that has a bunch of dogs on it. That's all you need to know for now. The same applies for the new concepts we're going to learn in this video. The focus is not syntax, it's on concepts. So there's a third route down here that I didn't mention in the first video, and it's slightly different in that it's a post route. So this code right here will only run when a user makes a post request to /createDog. And just to jog your memory, a user can't make a post request by typing something into the URL bar. 99.999% of the time that they'll be making a post request is through a form. So we're going to see that in action in just a little bit. But I can also demonstrate making a post request through Postman. So post request to /createDog, and what it will do is it will take the name and the breed that we send in the request, which is what's happening right here. Name is request.body.name, breed is request.body.breed. So somehow in the request, there's a name and a breed in this thing called the body. And we're using that to make a new dog. And then we're redirecting the user back to /dogs as a GET request, which will then run all of this code, which will find all the dogs and render the dogs page. So a lot of things happening. Let's start at the very beginning by sending a simple post request to /createDog. So let's go to Postman, and I'll change this over to be post. And then we need to change the route to be localhost 3000 /createDog. And we need to make sure that the server is still going okay, which it is. And then we can start by just hitting send, where we're not going to send a name and a breed, and we'll see what happens. So if you look at what we got back, it's the same dogs page where it has Rusty, Wyatt, Daisy, Sitka, and then there's also an empty dog with no name and no breed. And if I go to my browser here and I refresh, I make another GET request to /dogs, which will trigger the code that retrieves all the dogs from the database and makes a little li for each one. You can see, in fact, we do have an empty dog in the database. And that's because we didn't send any data. We didn't send a name and a breed to make our new dog with. So they were empty, and our code just made an empty dog and saved it to the database. So to send the data with Postman, we can go over to body, and then we can just type some stuff to add to the body. So we want a name to be Charlie, and breed, and the value for breed will be lab, just like that. This is all we need to do through Postman to make a post request that has name and breed inside of its body. And I'll hit send. Now you'll see the response we get. It's all the dogs again. This time, at the very end, we have Charlie as a lab. And if I refresh over here, make another request, I get all the dogs. Charlie has been added. Let's recap all of that in 30 seconds here. So I make a request, a post request to /createDog, just another type of request. And in the request.body, which is here, I'm adding name and breed, Charlie and lab. And then I hit send, and then my code on the server is listening for a post request to /dog, and it creates a dog with the request.body.name and request.body.breed, which are those two things that we sent with Postman. And then after it creates the dog, it redirects us to /dogs. So it doesn't send us a page or any HTML. It actually runs the code in /dogs right here, which then finds all the dogs, including the brand new one we just created, Charlie. Or in the previous case, it was an empty dog with no name and no breed. It retrieves all of them, and then it renders that dogs template that we saw, and for each one, it makes this little li. So a lot of things happening. It's listening for a post request. It's adding a new dog to the database, and it's redirecting us to /dogs. Now let's talk about how we could do this with a form. Remember, we can't make a post request by hitting enter in the nav bar, but we can make one using a form. So I'm going to add a form just to my dogs.ejs at the very bottom. Just going to make a form tag. And there are two parts to a form, which will now make more sense. We talked about them when I introduced forms originally, but you didn't have much context to understand what they meant. So those two attributes are action and method. So we'll start with method. We're making a post request. And you'll often see this in all caps as well. It doesn't matter. And then the action is where we're making a post request, which is just /create dog. So whenever this form is submitted, it will send a post request to create dog, which is what we're expecting here. Post request, create dog will run this code. Next, we need to add our inputs. So we're going to have two inputs, type equals text on both of them, just like that. And I'll add a placeholder for this one that just says name. And then the next one will be for breed. And the last thing we'll do is have an input type equals submit, which will be our button. And if we refresh the page, we now have a form, but there's a problem. If I fill this out, so I add in another dog here, Skittles, which can be a poodle. When I hit submit, it will send a post request to /create dog, but watch when I do that, we end up with an empty dog. And that's because even though I have two inputs, I haven't told the browser what the name of those inputs are. And this one needs to be called name, which is a little confusing. Name equals name. And this one needs to be breed. And so does the placeholder. So now what we've done is by adding this name attribute, we've told the browser when the user submits this form, send a post request to create dog with two pieces of data. Name should be equal to whatever is in this input, and breed is equal to whatever's in this input as well. We'll be spending tons of time writing forms and dealing with the different attributes, so don't get too caught up in that. But what's important now is that we are adding data to the body. And if I refresh and add in Skittles, who is a poodle, and now I hit submit, you can see that it sent a post request, and you can see that right here, a post to /create dog. And then what happened is inside of that create dog right here, it created a dog with the data from the form, the name and the breed. And then after it created that dog and saved it to the database, doesn't really matter how that works, but it just works. Then we redirect to /dogs, which is why there's actually a second little thing printed out here that says a GET request was made to /dogs. Even though I didn't actually hit enter, what happened is when I made a request to /create dog as a post, at the end of that, it actually makes another request for me to /dogs, and then that finds all the dogs, and then it renders the dogs template, which we see here, and then we get the form at the bottom and all the dog LIs, and that's why we see this here. So if you pay really close attention to this icon right here, you'll actually see, so I'll add another dog named Snickers, keeping with the candy theme, and Snickers can be a lab as well. When I hit submit, watch this very closely. It's going to be really quick, but it changed for just an instant. And that's important because it shows that when I make a request, it actually takes me away from this page, and then we're being redirected back here just super fast. So we're not just staying on this page the whole time. It actually takes us away for an instant and then redirects us back and shows us this content. And that's what's happening here. When we make a request to /create dog, then it redirects us to /dogs, and then in /dogs, it renders us the dogs template, which is how we see all of this in the browser. Okay, so we covered a lot there. Let me just point out the important parts. One is that inside of our server code, we can distinguish between a GET request and a POST request, and we can do different code depending on what happened when. And remember, a GET is to retrieve information and a POST is to add or submit information, which is what we're using it for. /create dog as a POST is how you can create a new dog. And there are two things that must be in the request body, the name and the breed. And if they're not there, it will make an empty dog. But whatever type of dog it makes, it then redirects us to /dogs, which then runs all of this code. And the other important thing is that when we submit this, there's an instantaneous refresh. It's really, really quick, but it still is a refresh where we're making a request somewhere else. Just like if I did this and I hit enter, we're actually making another request. Same idea here. When I hit submit, keep watching right here, makes a request every time. So that's all I want to talk about around this introduction to servers and to routes and HTTP. We're done for now. So next up, we're going to focus on getting our developer environment set up and installing all the tools that you need so that we can start writing code like this.